One Take Wine, we're back. Saturday, earliest of April, actually April 1st. But this is no joke. I'm giving you a twofer. I'm going to do two wines that I've tasted now for a little while. I've had them open for a couple hours. I've carafed them, decanted them, actually. Craft one of them. And then... and have been enjoying at least one of them over the last couple hours. Any other one I've been kind of waiting for at the end. And today I'm reversing the order. I'm starting with red and finishing with white. I do that because of the stature of the wines, and I'm not too sure I've actually done it in the right order, although I think ultimately I have. I'm a little bit biased. Anyway, so without further ado, let's jump into it. The first wine we're going to talk about today is this. It's a Mercurey Le Montots from Auberge de Villaine, and it's a 2013. Yeah, 2013 there. And first of all, I don't know Mercurey very well. I mean, the only reason I'm splashing around in this end of the pool, there's two reasons I'm splashing around in this end of the pool. One of them, because of the skyrocketing, spiraling, out of control pricing of Burgundy wines in general. So, not going to the obvious anymore. Looking off piste. Now, a wine by Auberge de Villaine should not be considered non-obvious. I mean, it should be an obvious try, and it has been in the past for me, is white wines, at least, in really. And I especially young. They were young. It was the vintage year that they were released, and I drank them, and I was like, yeah, okay. It's nothing I need to revisit type thing. But that was many moons ago. And then this summer, when I was in Paris, and maybe you've seen, I don't know if I made a note of it, but I don't know if I've published that note yet. But a more recent vintage is Mercurey Montots, 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there. And I was super impressed. I mean, super impressed. There's something very interesting going on here. And I think I've got to find some of these things. So, cut to the chase a little bit. Later, I'm back home. It's April of the following year, the year after. And I'm looking at wine auctions, and I'm finding these Mercuries from Auberge de Villaine, mind you, right? Who's the gérant of DRC, so pretty good chops. Doesn't mean anything in the sense of what's in the bottle, but at the same time, personally, I respect the achievement, and if he says something's good, I'm probably going to listen to him more than I'm going to listen to myself. So, went to auction, found a 2010 actually, and bid on successfully, which I haven't opened yet, and I haven't scored or talked about on these videos. And then this 2013, which I thought, you know what? Why don't I get an off vintage? Why don't I get something a little bit more less obvious? And drink it, and we'll go from there, and then we'll sort of have a judge of character, because the Montots that I drank this summer, or the last time I drank it in Paris, was very young, and that was the flip side of it. It had the sort of the raspiness of youth to it, and so in that sense it almost feels rustic, and yet at the heart of it I was convinced there's something strange and strangely appealing going on here. And if you saw that note, then you know I'm not just making it up after the fact, which a lot of us wine people do. Just memory is one of those things. So this 2013 Le Montots Mercurey, and on the back, in French, he writes it's a vin de garde, and he thinks it can, or he states it can it can age from 15 to 20 years depending on your cellar, the cellar conditions. And it's going to start to become more complex after 5 or 7. So I'm in the sweet spot, right? I'm between those 2 points. I'm between the 15 to 20 year limit that he's kind of imposing on the aging, but I'm beyond the 5 to 7 when it starts to reveal its complexities. And then it's like 18 degrees with, meats and cheeses and and I mean, again, let's take a look at that label. I love the typeface, right? Because it reminds you of DRC. I mean, that alone, that label alone is enough to get you in there. Anyway, what do we got in the glass? That's what's important. I don't know if you can see it. You probably can't. I probably need another camera setup or some way of showing you these colors, but it is starting to fade in color a little and become a little more translucent, but still a sort of deepish burnt red. The nose is pure strawberry. It's pure strawberry. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. From the fruit side, it's pure strawberry, other than the whiff of root cellar, which, when you first open it and until it blows off, that's going to be there just with some aging in bottle. And now it's just this pure strawberry, lovely strawberry, maybe a touch of rhubarb. Lovely sweetness, makes your mouth water. Exciting. Yeah. Interesting wine. The strawberry and rhubarb, even because there's a bitter herb. There was a bitterness to it, kind of a sharp bitterness to it, playing around on the sides and in the back. But that strawberry fruit is still very, very much, alive and forward, and probably as well. I don't know. I don't know if it's as good as it's going to get, but it's definitely advanced. It's matured to that point. I think the acidity is a little harsh, and the tannins are nice. The tannins are very nice, but the acidity is a little too rough around the edges. It does. I mean, if you haven't experienced a lot of them, you will say a rustic, or you will think a rustic type of wine, or you won't care. You'll just think it's a little rough around the edges. I like it. I think it's part of the character of a wine like this, from where it comes from, and it's part of what I like about it. I mean, it's kind of a defining feature in a way, and I noticed that in the younger wine as well, that hidden behind that sort of more rougher side, there's this heart of gold, Because boy, oh boy, that fruit is very, very voluptuous, very ripe. Then that sort of rhubarb acidity kind of comes into it and plays a little bit with your head. It's not super long. It's a sneaky length, though, I must say. It's a good lasting impression rather than a driving one. And I think that's a sign of class to some extent, my opinion. So it's a sneaky length, you know what I mean? Like when you breathe out a minute later, you're still breathing the flavors of strawberry and rhubarb. So, and that sort of bitter herbal thing, which is not, I know I'm making it sound terrible, but it's not. It's very, very positive. What do I think of this wine? I think it's well worth what I'm getting it for at auction. If I see them again, I'm going to buy them, just because, for the experience of what you get out of Burgundy. You know, I think it's probably pretty true to its terroir. I would expect it to be with Auberge de Villaine. So in that sense, that's interesting. So it's you're getting a true, sense, a slice of terroir, which is one of the reasons that we keep being drawn back into Burgundy, over and over and over, is these little slices of lots that are, 50 meters squared type thing, and they align each other, and they're completely different from one footstep to the next in terms of the final product. It all comes down to the vigneron and to the land it's grown on, and to the minerals in that land, and to the weather and the aspect, and the it's so multifactorial that it's truly incredible. And this is one of them. This is one of those wines that sits right in there. Lovely. I'm enjoying it very much. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this glass later this afternoon. I think it was a superb purchase. I can't wait to open it in 2010. And if I see them again, I'm gonna buy them. I didn't realize that he claims 20 to 25 years, or 15 to 20 years. I think that's ambitious, but now that I'm tasting it, I think, and also, why would I question someone who's obviously superior to me in every which way about wine? Moving right along. So the second wine, and it's a white wine, obviously, since I started with the white, or a claim of having a white and following it up, was this. I don't know if you can see it. 2008. Puligny Montrachet, Le Cailleret, from Pousse d'Or. La Pousse d'Or, there's a couple of things going on here, right? So La Pousse d'Or, back in the early noughts, the early 00s, I was buying La Pousse d'Or reds, Clos du Roi, and those types of wines, because I thought they were magnificent. I thought they were very, very elegant, really superb examples of southern wines. They were basically giving them away too. I mean, they weren't so expensive. So you could drink them a lot, and you could enjoy them. And I think they're still pretty reasonable, although I have not drank them in a long time. That's number one. Number two, 2008. I'm just going to keep repeating it here. I think 2008 was the best white wine vintage in Burgundy, for sure. But I think throughout France, actually. But certainly in Burgundy, in a very, very, very long time. I think it's superior to 14. Although I think 14 is very, very good as well. And I think between those two, then the rest of them are sort of, you can make a case for the next level down. But it's between those two, and then I think 08 is the very top of the pops. As far as I'm concerned, you might make a case for 02. I wouldn't agree. If anything, I would say 00. I know that's unpopular, but 99 and 00 are interesting white wine vintages. Anyway, this is 08, the one white wine vintage. And then the third and final factor is it's Le Cailleret, Puligny Montrachet Le Cailleret. So, of the Puligny sites, of the Puligny terroirs, the Cailleret is my favorite. It's the one I always seek out. It's the one I look for. And the reason I look for it is because it's adjacent to Montrachet. So, I mean, situationally, it's adjacent to Montrachet, and just above it is Chevalier Montrachet. So it's just surrounded by the greats. How can it go wrong? I would say the producer quality is a little bit suspect, because really the only producer of Le Cailleret traditionally, or in the last little while, has been who's sort of, you're not really going to argue against, would be De Monty, as far as I'm concerned. And De Monty, between, say, I think they got their Cailleret vineyard in 93, and they got a certain little gentleman named Guy Roulot to start making the wines from 93 to 99. So any vintages of those that you see at auction, of course, you should pick up. I've been snapping them up. some reason, people don't seem to really realize that that's what's going on. You're going to get a genuine Guy Roulot wine from a terroir that's adjacent to Montrachet for, comparatively reasonable money. This is the Pousse d'Or, which I've never had, actually, so very exciting. In a top vintage, very exciting. Let's have a taste. Color-wise, look at that. It's a deep yellow, so obviously the age is starting to get to it. Is there oxidization? Not even a stitch. This is very floral and very honey-like. And then this kind of deep, there's a real bass note to it. I'm not going to say beeswax, but a very buttery, sort of savory base to it. Maybe something marine or, oh my gosh, oh. I have to go back in. This is magnificent. I guess you knew I was going to say that. There's a ripeness to this that is not my favorite thing in white wine generally when it starts to, but oh, the popcorn, the butter, the floral, and the seashell. Oh, it's just that combination of things is just so. At the same time, it's very it's also light and dense. It's light in its structure, but almost like every atom is absolutely as packed as it possibly can be with energy. So you get this kind of dancing, energetic sort of melting over and saturation of your palate. This is why we drink wine, right here. I'm flabbergasted at the quality of this. This is insanely good. Now, I see the connection to Montrachet. I do. But it doesn't have the power. It doesn't have the outward sort of boom, when you drink a big Montrachet, it's often just takes over the room. It just says, I'm here now, everybody else can go home. For better or worse, I don't necessarily think that that's the greatest, most attractive quality in a wine, but, for some, especially in a tasting, it tends to, color people's perspectives in a strange way. It's far more delicate and yet savagely underappreciated for its density and that sort of drive that's in there. Very energetic, very mineral, and yet round without being not so oily. The steeliness of the backbone is still in it. It's not a sharp acidity. It's a very elegant, balanced, lemon-tinged acidity that pushes as it needs to. I think it's a top quality wine. How do I compare it to de Monti? I'm super surprised by this. I have to say, I think it's a little different. I think de Monti is maybe a little more elegant, a little more linen-y, a little more less ripe in terms of the fruit, and that gives it this sort of presence that conveys grace. And I'm not saying this doesn't, because it does in spades. It's just a matter of what do you like better. Do you like a little bit of that modernity in it, that little butteriness, that little. Because gosh, this is really compelling. What a great wine! What a great purchase! I mean, this was even less than what the Montots gets for their wines. It was like this €70 wine. You can't get a Puligny Montrachet Premier Cru for the price I paid for an aged 08 from Le Cailleret to boot. You just can't do it today. So, I mean, I'm going to end it here. And I'm going to say, I think the lesson to be learned here is that, if you are in a position to go to auction, do that before you go to the new releases at the store. Spend most of your wine budget there, because someone else has taken on the penalty of aging it for all these years. You're going to pay a bit of a premium, but it's worth way more than the payment that you'll make. That's number one. Number two, Le Cailleret. I don't even know if I should be letting this secret out, but really, it's a top level Premier Cru. I would argue. No, I'm not going to make a case for Grand Cru, but I think it's somewhere between the two. I've had worse Grand Crus. It's somewhere between Grand Cru and Premier Cru. It's one of those super, like Clos Saint-Jacques or Amoureuse. And then number three, Aubert de Villaine, he's no fool. And I don't think I'm not revealing any secrets there. The guy knows what he's doing. He makes great wines. Highly recommend at least this, the Mercurey Montots. I'm probably going to explore a little more of his lineup in the years to come, in the days to come, in the weeks to come. With that, I say stay thirsty. We'll see you soon. Until the next time.